Hindus refers to anyone who regards himself or herself as culturally, ethnically or religiously adhering to aspects of Hinduism. It has historically been used as a geographical, cultural or religious identifier for people indigenous to South Asia. The historical meaning of the term Hindu has evolved with time, starting with the Persian and Greek references to India in the first millennium BCE through the texts of the medieval era. The term Hindu implied a geographic, ethnic or cultural identifier for people living in Indian subcontinent around or beyond Sindhu River. By the 16th century, the term began to refer to residents of India who were not Turks the Muslims. The historical development of Hindu self-identity within the Indian population, in a religious or cultural sense, is unclear. Competing theories state that Hindu identity developed in the British colonial era, or that it developed post-8th century CE after the Islamic invasion and medieval Hindu-Muslim wars. A sense of Hindu identity and the term Hindu appears in some texts dated between the 13th and 18th century in Sanskrit and regional languages. The 14th and 18th century Indian poets such as Vidyapati, Kabir and Nath used the phrase Hindu Dharma and contrasted it with Turaka Dharma. The Christian friar Sebastião Manrique used the term Hindus in religious context in 1649. In the 18th century, the European merchants and colonists began to refer to the followers of Indian religions collectively as Hindus, in contrast to Mohammedans for Mughals and Arabs following Islam. By mid-19th century, colonial Orientalist texts further distinguished Hindus from Buddhists, Sikhs and Jains, but the colonial laws continued to consider all of them to be within the scope of the term Hindu until about mid-20th century. Scholars state that the custom of distinguishing between Hindus, Buddhists, Jains and Sikhs is a modern phenomenon. At more than 1.03 billion, Hindus are the world's third largest group after Christians and Muslims. The vast majority of Hindus, approximately 966 million, live in India, according to India's 2011 census. After India, the next 9 countries with the largest Hindu populations are, in decreasing order, Nepal, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, United States, Malaysia, United Kingdom and Myanmar. These together accounted for 99% of the world's Hindu population, and the remaining nations of the world together had about 6 million Hindus in 2010. Etymology. The word Hindu is derived from the Indo-Aryan and Sanskrit word Sindhus, which means a large body of water, covering river, ocean. It was used as the name of the Indus River and also referred to its tributaries. The actual term Hindus first occurs, states Gavin Flood, as a Persian geographical term for the people who lived beyond the river Indus. More specifically in the 6th century BCE inscription of Darius I. The Punjab region, called Sapta Sindhava in the Vedas, is called Hapta Hindu in Zend Avesta. The 6th century BCE inscription of Darius I mentions the province of Hidush, referring to northwestern India. The people of India were referred to as Hinduvan, and Hindavi was used as the adjective for Indian in the 8th century text Chachnama. The term Hindus in these ancient records is an ethno-geographical term and did not refer to a religion. The Arabic equivalent Al-Hind likewise referred to the country of India. Among the earliest known records of Hindus with connotations of religion may be in the 7th century CE Chinese text record of the western regions by the Buddhist scholar Xuanzang. Xuanzang uses the transliterated term into whose connotation overflows in the religious, according to Arvind Sharma. while Shanzang suggested that the term refers to the country named after the moon. Another Buddhist scholar, I Sing, contradicted the conclusion, saying that Hindu was not a common name for the country. Al-Biruni's 11th century text Tariq al-Hind and the texts of the Delhi Sultanate period use the term Hindu, where it includes all non-Islamic peoples such as Buddhists, and retains the ambiguity of being a region or a religion. The Hindus community occurs as the amorphous other of the Muslim community in the court chronicles, according to Romila Thapa. Wilfred Cantwell Smith notes that Hindus retained its geographical reference, initially Indian, indigenous, local, virtually native. Slowly, the Indian groups themselves started using the term, differentiating themselves and their traditional ways for those of the invaders. The text Prithviraj Raso by Chanda Bharadai about the 1192 CE defeat of Prithviraj Chauhan at the hands of Muhammad Ghori is full of references to Hindus and Turks, and at one stage says both the religions have drawn their curved swords. However, the date of this text is unclear and considered by most scholars to be more recent. In Islamic literature, Abd al-Malik Azami's Persian work, Futuhu Salatin, composed in the Deccan in 1350, uses the word Hindi to mean Indian in the ethno-geographical sense and the word Hindus to mean Hindus in the sense of a follower of the Hindu religion. The poet Vidyapati's poem Kirtalata contrasts the cultures of Hindus and Turks in a city and concludes, the Hindus and the Turks live close together, each makes fun of the other's religion. One of the earliest uses of word Hindus in religious context in a European language was the publication in 1649 by Sebastião Manri. Other prominent mentions of Hindus include the epigraphical inscriptions from Andhra Pradesh kingdoms who battled military expansion of Muslim dynasties in 14th century, where the word Hindus partly implies a religious identity in contrast to Turks or Islamic religious identity. The term Hindu was later used occasionally in some Sanskrit texts such as the later Rajataranginis of Kashmir and some 16th to 18th century Bengali Gaudiya Vaishnava texts including Chaitanya Charitamrita and Chaitanya Bhagavata. These texts used it to contrast Hindus from Muslims who are called Javanas or Malekshas, with the 16th century Chaitanya Charitamrita text and the 17th century Bhakta Mala text using the phrase Hindu Dharma. Terminology. Medieval era usage. One of the earliest but ambiguous use of the word Hindus, states Arvind Sharma, in the Brahmanabad settlement which Muhammad ibn Qasim made with non-Muslims after the Arab invasion of northwestern Sindh region of India, in 712 CE. The term Hindus meant people who were non-Muslims, and it included Buddhists of the region. In the 11th century text of al-Biruni, Hindus are referred to as religious antagonists to Islam, as those who believe in rebirth, presents them to hold a diversity of beliefs, and seems to oscillate between Hindus holding a centralist and pluralist religious views. In the texts of Delhi Sultanate era, states Sharma, the term Hindu remains ambiguous on whether it means people of a region or religion, giving the example of Ibn Battuta's explanation of the name Hindu Kush for a mountain range in Afghanistan. It was so called, wrote Ibn Battuta, because many Indian slaves died there of snow cold as they were marched across that mountain range. The term Hindu there is ambivalent, and could mean geographical region or religion. In the texts from the Mughal Empire era, the term Hindu appears to refer to the people of India who had not converted to Islam. Pashawar Singh states, in Persian writings, Sikhs were regarded as Hindu in the sense of non-Muslim Indians. Jahangir, for example, called the Sikh Guru Arjan a Hindu, who pretends to be a saint. There was a Hindu named Arjan in Gobindwal on the banks of the Beas River. Pretending to be a spiritual guide, he had won over as devotees many simple-minded Indians and even some ignorant, stupid Muslims by broadcasting his claims to be a saint. They called him Guru. When Khushraw stopped at his residence, came out and had an interview with, giving him some elementary spiritual precepts picked up here and there, he made a mark with saffron on his forehead, which is called kashka in the idiom of the Hindus and which they consider lucky. Colonial era usage. During the colonial era, the term Hindu had connotations of native religions of India, that is, religions other than Christianity and Islam. In early colonial era Anglo-Hindu laws and British India court system, the term Hindu referred to people of all Indian religions and to non-Indian religions. The colonial project was itself undermined by its own constitutive contradictions, since many of these laws were no more intrinsic to Indian society than the proposed meld of English and Indian systems. The application of laws derived from Sanskrit classical texts leveled the community of Hindus to include all those who were not Muslims or Christians, and it absorbed under the category of Hindus both outcasts and members of religions as diverse as Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, Judaism and Zoroastrianism. The 20th century colonial laws of British India segregated people's rights by the religion, evolving to provide Muslims with Sharia law, Christians, Jews and Paris of British India with their own religious laws. The British government created a compendium of religious laws for Hindus, and the term Hindus in these colonial Hindu laws, decades before India's independence, applied to Buddhists, Jains and Sikhs. Beyond the stipulations of British law, colonial Orientalists and particularly the influential Asiatic researchers founded in the 18th century, later called the Asiatic Society, initially identified just two religions in India, Islam and Hinduism. These Orientalists included all Indian religions such as Buddhism as a subgroup of Hinduism in the 18th century. These texts called followers of Islam as Mohammedans and all others as Hindus. The text, by early 19th century, began dividing Hindus into separate groups for chronology studies of the various beliefs. Among the earliest terms to emerge were Sikhs and their college Buddhism, and in the 9th volume of Asiatic Researchers' Report on Religions in India, the term Jainism received notice. According to Pennington, the terms Hindu and Hinduism were thus constructed for colonial studies of India. The various subdivisions and separation of subgroup terms were assumed to be a result of communal conflict, and Hindu was constructed by these Orientalists to imply people who adhere to ancient default oppressive religious substratum of India. States Pennington. Followers of other Indian religions so identified were later referred Buddhists, Sikhs, Jains and distinguished from Hindus, in an antagonistic two-dimensional manner, with Hindus and Hinduism stereotyped as are irrational traditional and others as rational reform religions. However, these mid-19th century reports offered no indication of doctrinal or ritual differences between Hindu and Buddhist, or other newly constructed religious identities. These colonial studies, states Pennington, puzzled endlessly about the Hindus and intensely scrutinized them, but did not interrogate and avoided reporting the practices and religion of Mughal and Arabs in South Asia, and often relied on Muslim scholars to characterize Hindus. Contemporary usage. In contemporary era, the term Hindus are individuals who identify with one or more aspects of Hinduism, whether they're practicing or non-practicing a laissez-faire. The term does not include those who identify with other Indian religions such as Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, or various animist tribal religions found in India such as Sanaism. The term Hindu, in contemporary parlance, includes people who accept themselves as culturally or ethnically Hindu rather than with a fixed set of religious beliefs within Hinduism. One need not be religious in the minimal sense, states Julius Lipner, to be accepted as Hindu by Hindus, or to describe oneself as Hindu. Hindus subscribe to a diversity of ideas on spirituality and traditions, but have no ecclesiastical order, no unquestionable religious authorities, no governing body, no prophet nor any binding holy book. Hindus can choose to be polytheistic, pantheistic, monotheistic, monistic, agnostic, atheistic or humanist. Because of the wide range of traditions and ideas covered by the term Hinduism, arriving at a comprehensive definition is difficult. The religion defies our desire to define and categorize it. A Hindu may, by his or her choice, draw upon ideas of other Indian and non-Indian religious thought as a resource, follow or evolve his or her personal beliefs, and still identify as a Hindu. In 1995, Chief Justice P.B. Gajendra Gadkar was quoted in an Indian Supreme Court ruling, "When we think of the Hindu religion, unlike other religions in the world, the Hindu religion does not claim any one prophet, it does not worship any one god, it does not subscribe to any one dogma, it does not believe in any one philosophic concept, it does not follow any one set of religious rites or performances. In fact, it does not appear to satisfy the narrow traditional features of any religion or creed. It may broadly be described as a way of life and nothing more." Although Hinduism contains a broad range of philosophies, Hindus share philosophical concepts, such as but not limiting to dharma, karma, artha, moksha and samsara, even if each subscribes to a diversity of views. Hindus also have shared texts such as the Vedas with embedded Upanishads, and common ritual grammar, such as rituals during a wedding or when a baby is born, or cremation rituals. Some Hindus go on pilgrimage to shared sites they consider spiritually significant, practice one or more forms of Bhakti puja, celebrate mythology and epics, major festivals, love and respect for guru and family, and other cultural traditions. A Hindu could follow any of the Hindu schools of philosophy, such as Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, Dvaitadvaita, etc. Follow a tradition centered on any particular form of the divine, such as Shaivism, Vaishnavism, Shaktism, etc. Practice any one of the various forms of yoga systems in order to achieve moksha, that is, freedom in current life or salvation in afterlife. Practice Bhakti puja for spiritual reasons, which may be directed to one's guru or to a divine image. A visible public form of this practice is worship before an idol or statue. Jeanine Fowler states that non-Hindu observers often confuse this practice as stone or idol worship and nothing beyond it, while for many Hindus, it is an image which represents or is symbolic manifestation of a spiritual absolute. This practice may focus on a metal or stone statue, or a photographic image, or a linga, or any object, a tree or animal, or tools of one's profession, or sunrise or expression of nature, or to nothing at all. And the practice may involve meditation, japa, offerings or songs. Indian states that this practice means different things to different Hindus, and has been misunderstood, misrepresented as idolatry, and various rationalizations have been constructed by both Western and native Indologists. Disputes. In the Constitution of India, the word Hindu has been used in some places to denote persons professing any of these religions: Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism or Sikhism. This, however, has been challenged by the Sikhs and by neo-Buddhists who were formerly Hindus. According to Sheen and Boyle, Jains have not objected to being covered by personal laws termed under Hindu, but Indian courts have acknowledged that Jainism is a distinct religion. The Republic of India is in the peculiar situation that the Supreme Court of India has repeatedly been called upon to define Hinduism, because the Constitution of India, while it prohibits discrimination of any citizen on grounds of religion in Article 15, Article 34 sees special rights for all minorities, whether based on religion or language. As a consequence, religious groups have an interest in being recognized as distinct from the Hindu majority in order to qualify as a religious minority. Thus, the Supreme Court was forced to consider the question whether Jainism is part of Hinduism in 2005 and 2006. In the 2006 verdict, the Supreme Court found that the Jain religion is indisputably not a part of the Hindu religion.